And we're back. It's another Neville and Chill. Hello, everyone. Tonight, I am very excited to have this conversation. Tonight, we are going to enter a realm that maybe not that many people dare to tread, to talk about the simulation itself. To talk about how reality is not only a simulation, but there are also a specific arrangement of mechanics that cause reality to operate the way that it does. And when we have the courage and the boldness to take a look behind the curtain of reality and see what these mechanics may be, there are tremendous rewards that arrive in the form of not only a deeper sense of knowing, a stronger sense of alignment, but also really you can enter a whole new reality. I am joined today by special guest Shveta, who has been on this channel many, many times. We've talked on Neville and Chill many, many times. And Shveta is here to bring her unique perspective on simulation mechanics. So let's go ahead and bring you in. Hello, Shveta. Thanks for being with us tonight. You need to unmute.
Yes. Hi, Josiah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for welcoming me back for this, as you mentioned, very interesting conversation.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this because there is so much to be said about reality being a simulation. And I'm just going to let you go ahead and dive into it because I think it's important to say first and foremost that we're going to take this to a different place than where other people have taken it. We're going to kind of go off the map a little bit. So go ahead and take the lead with that.
Yeah, and as Josiah mentioned, I've been on Neville and Chill and on Josiah's channel and talking about a lot of different things. Some of my favorite topics happen to be success stories using Neville Goddard's teachings. And so and you'll also have heard of me if you are interested in some of the research I've done on consciousness, how the parallels between science and Neville Goddard's teachings. And so since I discovered Neville and through Josiah's work, I started mapping out how consciousness works beyond just the way that even Neville Goddard had mapped it out. And I realized that I had to start doing that. I recognize this need lately that for an understanding, a systems understanding of how reality works. With the advent of technology and AI and all of these new incredibly magical and important systems that have popped up, we need to have a 2025 and beyond version understanding of conscious creation. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I know that sounds quite grand, and it is, because we're in really, really important times, in times of singularity, in times where reality as we know it is starting to change fundamentally from technology angle and also the mystical angle. So that's what I wanted to share today, some of the patterns that I've been able to uncover and how exactly this reality operates like a simulation.
I love what you're saying here. So it's, we have the groundwork laid by these famous mystics. And on this channel, obviously, it's Neville and Chill, right? So we're all about the work of Neville Goddard. He did a lot of work to lay the foundation and to help us understand what reality is. He never called it a simulation. He called it the figment of your imagination. He called it the world is yourself pushed out. Okay, so humans, as we age and evolve, we tend to use the metaphors that we see in the world around us based on our technology to describe what consciousness is and what reality is. And so I think that's why more recently we've seen this graduation into using terms like simulation. But I love what you're saying here about like, hey, everything that went before is the foundation. Now we need to bring this conversation into the modern era. We need to update our language. We need to update our frame. We need to update our perspective. And it's time to leave the realm of just, theory and enter the realm of a structured systems approach. This is not a conversation about like, ooh, reality is just a simulation. This is a conversation about, okay, we all recognize reality is a simulation. What is the structure of how the simulation works?
Yes, exactly. We've been given an incredible treasure, a treasure map, and the fundamentals of the law. Neville's books have covered some of the most fundamental ground we can, and through systems thinking and putting systems thinking through into conscious creation mapping out, like I've essentially began to map out a very intricate system that really matched a lot of the case studies I was seeing in the conscious creation community. Having been involved in earnest for several years now, I started realizing that these systems way of thinking, and I like to kind of define a lot of these terms, so it's not just kind of high level. It really, you'll see how it applies to these teachings, started making more sense of the mysteries behind conscious creation, why some things seem to work so easily, and why we struggle in other areas, why some things seem more probabilistically certain and others don't seem to be. What areas seem to be in our parameter of control and what other areas don't seem to be, what seems pre-programmed and what seems editable, at least from our angle. So it cleared up a lot of the mystery, a lot of the noise that felt still remaining. And it started to upgrade my understanding to match up with the world that we live in now, the reality that we live in now. And so I see this as I see the work that I do not in any way, shape, or form replacing Neville's teachings. It's actually about making his teachings more applicable to the world we're living now. And that's really my passion here. And it's something I've had to stretch myself into because the world is changing fast and I've had to keep up with it as well if I want to understand consciousness and if I'm taking this work seriously.
Yeah, well said. Yes. Okay, so we have mapped out about 9 different points here to get into for discussion. So let's start with the first point. So different ways that we've explained conscious creation so far.
Yeah, I kind of think of it like when I say we've, I'm being a bit casual here. I mean, as humanity, through when we look at the pillars of how we see reality, there's been storytelling. So that's biblical storytelling through religion. Neville really leaned into that. Storytelling in Vedantic and Dharmic frameworks. So like the Hindu teachings and Eastern teachings, like in Buddhism, there's religious and spiritual teachings through storytelling. So that's one way that we've sort of understood how reality works. And then there's psychological frameworks. So modern science has learned about, psychology and, self-concept work. And a lot of Neville's teachings map out perfectly well into a lot of psychological frameworks, whether that's CBT or DBT. There could be scientific frameworks, so understanding how neuroscience works, which is kind of the study of the brain, the study of what we consider to be the main tool of consciousness, the head brain. There's so many different frameworks that we're starting to recognize truth, and I saw them all as different systems that were speaking to the same thing and different lenses. And I started to see, okay, in the same way that these are different models and different lenses, maybe there's a broader mechanics behind what's happening that is fundamentally systematic. So instead of it being just a storytelling lens or a metaphorical lens, I started to see the world around me and recognize that there's a systematic explanation that we could use. Technology is essentially what I'm saying. Systems thinking, simulation theory as a more high definition, high resolution lens to explore how reality works. And why? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, so why systems thinking in particular? Why is that the best frame for understanding the simulation?
Because systems thinking actually allows us to see under the structure of the stories, how patterns stabilize, how archetypes stabilize, the role of repetition, the role of change, and consciousness itself in so many different ways, whether that's biological, energetic, seems to point to an adaptive system, a system that is dynamic and shifts and changes and takes inputs, creates outputs, and then creates a feedback loop. There seems to be a systematic way that patterns become stuck in reality and in consciousness. And it seems, if you think of why something would need persistence, why do we need to persist and shape and restructure things? It's because there's an underlying structure we're trying to affect here that is already being encoded with something. And so these,
Yeah, so this is a really important point here. So in the common interactions that we see online in manifesting communities. There's all these videos or the Reddit posts or, Facebook groups. People are talking about manifesting things. And it's like, oh, I keep imagining and assuming this state, and it seems like I'm not getting results. It seems like no matter how much work I'm doing on my state, the mirror is not changing to show me my new self. And then people are like, oh, just persist, just persist. Okay, so we're taking this conversation one step beyond that and saying, okay, what is that structure that seems to be in reality that our persistence is bumping up against? And how can we go from this place of, oh, let's just assume harder, and actually recognize what the code is that's giving us that reflection so that we can work smarter rather than harder?
Yeah, heck yeah. That makes perfect sense. Essentially, when you think of a system is essentially anything that has inputs, that interacts with patterns, creates outputs, and then is a feedback loop. And I started to realize, just through all my experimentation with imaginal acts and all of Neville's techniques, through looking at the world around me, and through just a sheer amount of pattern recognition of my own and analyzing, that reality worked eerily similar to systems frameworks. And as consumer AI has come out, whether that's ChatGPT and so many different kinds of products that have come out, I've started to see the correlation of how programmers optimize AI and how AI is optimized to create the ideal outputs that we want, and apply that to conscious creation and how our imagination works. So the mechanism through why your life is the way it is, why your reality is constructed the way it is. And so systems thinking gives us enormous clues, in the same way that Neville Goddard and other mystics use the Bible and other books that had encoded information within it, or scientists use the scientific method to look at a set of assumptions and use their way. I started to use the lens of systems thinking to map out how that could apply to consciousness, and it was eerie, it was eye-opening, and it started revolutionizing the way that I live my life, because Neville urged us all to test his teachings, and the testing of teachings requires experimentation. And I think what's really exciting is that systems thinking and the sort of what I've discovered and what I want to talk to you about today allows us to be experimental and test in a way that's kind of suited for 2025. That's kind of how I feel. It feels suited for current day times.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so that's a great intro. Let's go ahead and jump into, for people that maybe aren't that familiar with simulation theory, or maybe you've just heard people throw it around casually, let's define, what is simulation theory?
Yeah, so when I say simulation theory, that can sound really, in some way, over the top or almost overused, because people have overused the Matrix reference so much. But it's not like we're stuck in some game that someone else has created. That can be the very pop psychology way of looking at it. Essentially, what I'm getting at is that reality behaves like a system or a simulation, running patterns based on our inputs. So inputs produce outputs, patterns stabilize or shift based on the feedback, and intelligence governs the system. So intelligence is the mechanism that governs the system so that it continues providing the ideal outputs that the programmer and the prompter want out of it. So when you think of a simulation, you can think of it as a complex system. So if a system is just a basic input-output device, a simulation is one that's more complex and that you interact with and contains intelligence, which you can start to see how we are, and when you think of the body and you think of your experience, you are running a simulation, and the world externally is also a simulation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like what you're saying about starting to understand that the world, this idea of the world is yourself pushed out. That self that is pushed out is an intelligence that we're interacting with. I think you've called it natural intelligence. It's a system that is governing the outputs that are reflecting back our inputs. So it's our state of being the input, right? And then the world pushed out being the output of that input. I think I'm oversimplifying it, but I think that's the general gist. Yes.
Yes, it is. When we think of the sort of the overly simplistic metaphor that we used to use, that is still very helpful, is of a mirror. You do the input of smiling, and the mirror reflects outwards, reflects that back to you. Now we know that metaphor is only useful up to a point, because reality doesn't feel like a one-to-one experience. You're putting in an input and you're getting an output that feels like nothing like what you put in sometimes, right? So I used to expand that metaphor and say there's a fun house of mirrors, and that also could only stretch out to a certain period. So what I'm getting at is, when you think of, and this is where I'm bringing to the table, I've done the research, so I can make this easy for you, but essentially what I'm saying is, systems thinking takes that mirror metaphor and add so much high definition clarity, so you're able to better understand, oh, this is where my inputs shift. And this is so I think of it like, Neville said, consciousness is through consciousness you're a selector of states, and you output your reality through that selection. And so that selection process then has an intelligence. So you choose a state, and then there's an intelligence that takes over, that optimizes, that creates this reality in a self-organized way. So it's not this magical thinking thing anymore. It's a mechanistic almost expression. And Neville he seemed to really understand this from a systems level well, but he showed through to his audience the biblical metaphor, because he knew that's what they would understand. But he seemed to really understand the systems metaphor really well. When he speaks about the world being like mechanical dolls, you can see that he's talking about the mechanistic layer of reality. So he certainly spoke to that. But I think we as a society are ready for the systems thinking that he maybe held back. We're ready for being able to apply this, because as a society, we're all starting to have to interact with systems that we might not have understood earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So macro view, consciousness itself is an intelligent system. Do you have more framing for that as an idea?
Yeah, I would say that when we think of the reality that we work with, or that we're trying to affect, we think of it as an intelligent system, we start to respect it more and recognize that there's mechanisms that are happening beyond our five sense reality and beyond what we can control. And that because it has that intelligence and we can map it out, we can almost spot the ways in which the feedback loop starts to create. So what I'm getting at is, this framework doesn't just feel like it's a black hole. You're putting your imaginal act in every night. Where is it working? And there's like crickets out there. You have less of that as an experience, because now you are able to spot things a bit easier. There's more, because it's more high definition, this as a metaphor, it doesn't feel as much of a black hole. And it can help us kind of think of it that way, because we know we can think of consciousness now and the world around us as an intelligent system.
Okay. Yes. Got it. Okay, so that's it on the macro side. Let's zoom in and let's take a look at the more micro view. So where does AI and everyday experimentation come into play?
When you think of what artificial intelligence is doing for us now, wherever you stand on it, it's an extension of an individual's intelligence. So everyone can download ChatGPT, but before you put a prompt in, all of the potential outputs that could come out live in latent space, like infinite potential, but not, there's no output yet until you put a prompt that generates an output.
Yes.
And so there's a metaphor just being begged to be birthed there, if I'm honest. But just using a system like that has intelligence allows you to better understand how systems work. And so I almost feel like, and this is getting really macro or meta, that conscious creators can think of AI as a manifestation tool, but a manifestation itself as well, as an extension of their consciousness, because it's a feedback loop that is intelligent. It's a system that provides immediate feedback loops, and it also so happens to have read every book that it can think of and is evolving, and understand every theory, at least, superficially, and just be the smartest friend you could ever have in that space, and so I think of AI as a tool that conscious creators should start using to better understand how systems works as an extension of our consciousness and intelligence, and for a million other use cases that I'm dying to share with you, because you'll hear soon. Josiah and I are working together on various programs, and a program we'd like to talk to you about. But Josiah also put a video out that was on, I believe, Sunday, around how to have a mature, conscious, sacred relationship with ChatGPT and artificial intelligence tools, whichever one you want. And so I would recommend anyone who's listening to this that wants to explore the micro system of AI in your life, like watch that video so that you can kind of start to see how you can use the systems thinking of AI to make you a more conscious creator.
I love that. Yeah. So that was unlocking soul mode in AI, or the sovereign mirror modality. We talked about that on Sunday. That video is up on the channel now. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, Shveta, is we can understand that consciousness is the only reality. Our state of being is creating inputs, and we are interacting with an intelligent system that is the mirrors, or our self pushed out, that is reflecting back to us from, excuse me, from the field of infinite possibilities. We are defining, by being the observer, we're defining what potential is reflected back to us through our state of being. Okay, so there's latent potential. All creation is finished, everything exists, and what we experience out of the totality of all that is a little subset determined by our state of being. And you're saying that this is mirrored on a micro level through our use of AI, where when we open up a new chat window, there's all of the possible interactions that we could possibly have with a tool like this, an intelligence like this. And then through our prompt, it is now collapsing out of the latent space of infinite possibilities a very specific response to us that is tailored to us, tailored to the words that we choose, the emotional charging of the words, tailored to what it knows about us. It's like very, very direct algorithmic response to what we're bringing forward. And so what I'm hearing you say is that AI in miniature is a replicant of what we experience on the macro scale as human beings, consciousness incarnated into flesh, living in a world that is ourselves pushed out.
Yes. AI is the closest miniature and replica that even comes close to the magic of the input-output creative beings we are. It's an abstraction. It's not, it barely scratches the surface of, but to me, it's the closest replica, which makes it really freaking fascinating.
So this is why you're saying this is a conversation that could only be had now, like in the liquid modernity, where these intelligences exist, because until this intelligence, such as the AI tools that we have, came into manifestation, we didn't have something that is this close of a pattern replicator, this close of a fractal representation.
To the average person, because of the immediate feedback loops, the accessibility, to the average person, this is when it's spilled out to the public, because there were always hidden groups that had technology, ancient technology of all kinds, that were working with systems thinking, whether that's in all kinds of different ways, if I'm honest. So in terms of modern technology, in terms of the immediate feedback loop, in terms of when it's applicable to everyone and accessible to everyone, this is the closest. And this is why it's so exciting. Because, like I said, Neville knew the systems thinking, but he didn't focus on that as the lens in his message at that time. And I think that was for a very specific reason.
Yeah. Okay. So this is really cool. And this conversation, I'm starting to feel the excitement of it, because it really feels like we're tapping into something that can really explode wide open our understanding of what reality is as a simulation, and start to get into some of the, what we boldly put forth as mastery of the simulation. So let's go ahead and let's keep it going here. Let's talk about the mechanics of manifestation.
Okay, yes. And to kind of, I want to jump into this, but to go back to what you were saying, it is a huge conversation. It's why I'm both, I'm vibrating with energy and wanting to share this with the utmost earnest care and the utmost, my desire to share this thoughtfully and with the right level of reverence is the word I'm looking for, is so high because I'm shaking every day with the fact that the systems thinking has blew open this up for me. And I feel like more and more people are starting to recognize that too. And so it's really, really exciting stuff. And so to tie this into manifestation, which is probably why most people find Neville's teachings, is that they want to create something that they don't have. They want to manifest, make real something that they don't have right now. When you put Neville's teachings into a systems model, everything lines up eerily beautifully. So when you think of a system, it has feedback loops. Revision is modifying a feedback loop. Yes. When you think of persistence is what systems engineers and programmers call reinforcement training. So you want to reinforce the program because it doesn't have that reinforcement right now. States are essentially inputs, but states also have within them information, like Neville would say. And so and then there's this intelligence that guides the whole process, which is how the imaginal acts kind of goes into the bridge of incidents. And you can find more of the specifics of this, kind of like an intro class to this, if you get the membership on your channel, Josiah, because I did a bit more detailed. So I kind of get into the nitty gritty of this. An intro 101 class onto feedback loops and systems thinking so that we can kind of, for those that were members of Josiah's channel, you can check it out. It's really cool. But that's what was really interesting. And that's why I think systems thinking is where it is useful, is it takes lots of Neville's teachings and makes sense out of why it helps that feedback loop of creation. And it systemizes the whole thing.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, so if you're a member of this channel, you have access to that. It's already posted in the members area. For anyone who's not, it's posted on the School of Imagination learning management system. If you are a free register, if you register for free for any of the School of Imagination free courses, such as Consciousness 101 or Sunday Mystery School, you can log into the portal and that class is available there. Okay, so this, yeah, I get what you're saying, the mechanics of the manifestation and how you can take Neville's system that he taught, Neville and all of the mystics, all of the law of assumption, law of attraction people, you can take that system that everyone teaches and map it onto systems thinking and find the parallels. Okay, so
yeah.
What does mapping it in this way, what does that unlock that wasn't accessible before we had that key?
Okay. Well, it allows for intricate experimentation, for high definition self-knowing, self-awareness. It allows for more, it's almost like a tool upgrade. So, when you had a compass before and now we're at Google Maps, you know what I mean? Where you had a compass, which was a genius technology for the time it was. It allowed for so much to happen. This understanding to me is getting closer to like a Google Maps. It starts to map out things in a way that is more intricate, more high definition, more high resolution. And I'll tell you how it kind of has helped me personally. When I start mapping out the systems thinking, and I use AI to do it as well, and this gets meta, I start to see patterns much more vividly. I get to be more surgical with what exactly is the block, you could say, or the firewall or filter. I get to be balanced in my approach because any system values efficiency, effectiveness, and I get to also be detached. Instead of feeling like, even when the imaginal thinking, even with Neville's teaching that you are God, there's still this sort of divination kind of feeling, whereas this kind of has an impersonal, detached, but yet so powerful kind of approach. And I think we as a community need that. We need a healthy, detached understanding of how reality works. So instead of getting overly obsessed with one desire, that's a pitfall a lot of people experience. Instead of feeling like, there's nothing but failure, instead of feeling like nothing's happening, those problems were version 1.0 Shweta problems. Yeah. Now I have other problems but that's what happens, right? With systems thinking, the system has been upgraded, the tool understanding has been upgraded, and now I have higher resolution problems to deal with.
Okay. Should we pause there and remember that this is Neville and Chill and we have beverages to crack open? I got so excited. Tell me about all of this. And then I was like, wait, I got this beverage sitting here. Okay. True. So I'm going to greet everyone in the chat, and then we're just going to take like a little pause here. Let's say hello to everybody, and then we'll grab our drinks. So we are live on YouTube right now talking about simulation, mastery, and mechanics. I see we have Orlena, Anna, Jackie, Sonia, Stacy, Stasio, Oksana, Jonathan, or as we call him, Chops, M-Dub, Cheryl, Zay. Excellent. Okay. Welcome, everybody. All right, Shweta, what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, I'm drinking, I call it a coconut spritz. Essentially, I have like a sparkling mineral water where I put my favorite electrolyte filled coconut drink, and it's so good. It is so yummy. I love Whole Foods lately, and they have these little recipes on the app. So I made one of these, and it's really delicious. How about you?
Excellent. So I find that electrolytes are crucial at this stage of my journey, and it seems like you're on the same boat here. Okay, so I am drinking Sap maple soda. This is maple tree water that has been gently condensed. It's not like actual maple syrup, but it is a perfect amount of sweet, and it is carbonated and cold. And I'm really enjoying it. I've been learning about sap. So sap is actually the plasma of the maple tree. And so kind of framing it in that way is like, okay, this is not just water. This is something else. And it's not just nutrients. I mean, it has a whole, it has all of these minerals in it. It actually, it feels like it's also carries information, carries like tree information, which is like kind of a meta level to consider it. But I really enjoy this drink. It's delicious.
It's interesting you say that, because inputs have information, they're encoded, and that could be the most casual of inputs. And some of that information, you could think of it as, you know how they say placebo, but every interaction you have, you put that signature in it. So if you're saying there's something to this drink, there's plasma in it, and it feels good, that is inherently encoding information into that. So that's great. Yeah. Also, when you said about electrolytes, I'll be honest, until I started thinking of systems thinking, I did not realize how hydration matters, and how hydration, it works with my fascia, which is an information system in the body. Understanding the body aspect of it has been a huge benefit of systems thinking, because I used to get confused. Is it just imagination, or should I focus on the physical body? A lot of those confusions naturally went away when I thought of reality as a system, and a system is a whole of its parts. Doesn't make sense to ignore any parts. And the system has intelligence in all levels. So what I feel intelligently called to, I will be drawn to. So that's another benefit. It's funny you bring up electrolytes. That would be a thing I didn't even care about a year ago. But as I started to think of the systems thinking, yes, I think electrolytes are important.
I like that you said that. I feel like you just tapped into a level of holistic thinking that maybe some people aren't quite there yet, but maybe hearing you say that will kind of help to crack open that door a little bit. And I can relate. I'm starting to see in this holistic way now, everything kind of being one thing and all the parts being equally valid. But it was not that long ago that I was like, oh, we can just ignore the body because I'm all imagination, right? So we're all slowly, well, hopefully not too slowly. We're all growing. We're all growing and evolving our understanding of this. And I want to kind of reflect back something that you said there. With this wisdom of the mechanics of the simulation, there's no part of life that is not touched by this wisdom. When you start to integrate this level of thinking and seeing and knowing, every single aspect of your life begins to shape shift and change. It is complete. It is there's nothing that's left untouched. It is thorough. It permeates it. And this is why when you started to talk to me about the explorations that you were doing, the experimentation, and then this, I mean, really it's research, this idea of lining up the systems thinking and putting it over Neville's teaching. You're really doing a very cutting edge form of research and connecting dots between scientific scientific types of intellectual frameworks and mystical, metaphysical frameworks. You're really like weaving those together. And when you started talking to me about what you were finding, this is why I said, Shweta, you need to teach this. And I don't mean just in a live stream. I mean, you need to like a college class. You need to teach this like a college class where people can actually get up to speed in the level that, you kind of hopefully catch up to you at least a little bit, right? You need to teach us like a college class. And so that's when we started talking about setting up Brave Mystic training. And that's now a program. We are within about 48 hours of opening registration for that program. It's currently in the waitlist status. And it's a 13-week. So for 13 weeks, it's 2 classes a week. I'm teaching authorship, which is all about owning your story. Story, the narrative of our lives, is how we frame everything. We can even really say that our state of being boils down to a story. It's a story that we're telling about ourselves and the world. So authorship is that state of beginning to own your story. And through the lens of authorship, we can not only write into being everything that our heart desires, but we can also unlock our true desires by activating our life mission and soul purpose. Through the technique or the modality of authorship, we can actually connect to our soul's true purpose and our life mission and purpose and activate that. And then through the second class, which is your class, Simulation Mastery and Mechanics, you can learn how to work with the simulation to manifest your upgraded desires that are based on your true soul mission and purpose that you're learning through this process of authorship. So we've really taken the inputs and optimizing the outputs, and we've wrapped them together into a 13-week, 2 classes a week training, Brave Mystic training, and it's starting later this month. So if you're hearing me say this and you're like, wow, that sounds cool, I'd like to know more. Like I said, we're in waitlist right now. So go join the waitlist. The link is right there in the description. That way you'll get the email when we introduce it and we give you all the details. And then you can make a decision about whether or not it's right for you. But hop on that waitlist now and get in the queue so that you can see what this is. It's truly paradigm shifting what we have going on here. Okay, Shweta. Yes, I just had to give that little yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think that what it says there is experimentation in real time, and that's what I want to teach you. So Josiah is going to be teaching and sharing about the authorship portion of it, and then I'd like to share about how to essentially increase your intelligence aspect of it, so that you're from a systems angle able to carry out that story. And that's what I've been able to do. I feel that I have become incredibly experimental in my approach to conscious creation. I have more information flowing in and out. So that has, I'm increasing my awareness of the world around me. Things that seemed so far feel extremely obvious now, and that's because I'm engaging with the world systematically. And I think it's a lot of the takeaways, and you can learn a little bit about it, like I said, in the class that I taught that you can find in the membership. But a lot of this will add clarity to people that have been coming up against walls. And so that's what I'm really excited about, because there's this mastery that we want to step into. And mastery takes going from extreme beginner, you get a little bit of a beginner's luck, to intermediate is kind of easy. But it's going from that intermediate phase where, I think it works sometimes, I think I know who I am sometimes, to mastery that requires that grit sometimes, and that's and pushing through. And that's what I think that the system will share.
Yeah. So I was actually talking to my partner about this earlier. She said, is this Brave Mystic training, are you accepting like brand new beginners who heard about, law of assumption or Neville Goddard like a week ago? And I was like, well, if they're feeling the resonance in their soul and they feel that they're ready, I'm not going to turn them away. And also, this is really for people that have been on the path and kind of know where they're going and are at the point where they're ready to get really good at what they've been practicing, like really good. meaning it's a training, right? This isn't a course. I mean, there's classes within the training, of course, but this is a training. This is 99 days. So it's not just, oh, let me sit and listen to a video. It's you're getting prompted with exercises every single day for 99 days to put it to the test, to actually experiment in real time based upon what we're talking about in the author and the authorship and the simulation mastery mechanics classes each week. So it's, to get to that level, you're like, okay, I see why this is important for my life. I'm ready to train in it and get really, really good, like proficient. This is a skill. Manifesting is a skill. Authorship is a skill. Those are the people that this is really targeted towards.
And it's exciting because I see that there's a critical mass, I think, of people who are in that position. There's people who found Neville during the time when we were all at home, when the world asked us to look inwards all at once. And so this is a maturity period. And that's what happens. Cyclically, that's what happens. And 99 days is sort of a critical period as well. 99 days is just enough to implement something so that you can start getting that initial round of feedback. So I think that's why I'm really excited. You've done different 99-day programs before. I've taken them. I've been impacted. It's had, groundbreaking effects on me. It's to me, it's full circle, honestly, that I get to contribute to someone else's 99-day experience with some of the insights I've gained having started with yours.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay. Is there more to be said about experimentation in real time, or should we move on to why this matters right now?
Well, last thing I'll say in experimentation in real time is that when you join the program that we're going to be a part of the simulation mastery will be to give you tools, bespoke tools, so you can experiment in real time and in real life, and report back and in real time see effects and real time be able to report those effects. And so that can be really helpful, and that can be really important, especially because everything, if you look around you, every app is trying to get you things quicker. So we're going to do the same kind of thing with conscious creation, being able to see the feedback loops quicker. And the experimentation aspect of this that you'll kind of get from the program is you'll get a bespoke, customized range of, I'm going to call it tools, but it's really approaches and frameworks that work for you. Because we know the law. The law is, you can call it the ultimate program, that who we claim ourselves to be is what is expressed out there. There's that main program, and then there's all these other applications and frameworks on top of that make life feel complex, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can create something that works perfectly well with your cultural background, the way you view the world, the vernacular that makes sense perfectly for you, the tone that works for you. Maybe you like, a really brutally honest guy from New Jersey. That's, that's who yourself is. And that feels like it's resonant to you. You'll be able to have tools and approaches and frameworks bespoke to you, which is, it's incredible, because before we had to rely on the other people that had gone there before us and then they use their language, and there's a little bit of a telephone tag kind of going on. This time you get to make it. So that's what I wanted to say. That's what makes the experimentation exciting, is that it's like bespoke to you. Yeah.
Okay. So the bespoke to you, like this is one of the parts that I'm most excited about, because I feel like in the past, people would get onto the mystic path. They'd be like, okay, I'm the creator of my own reality. I need to learn how to do this. And then we would go on this search pattern, and we would go out on YouTube, and we would find all the different influencers that are talking about Neville, and be like, okay, I kind of like, how this guy says these things, but this other part of his vibe I'm not really into. And then you go to this other teacher over here. Oh, they have a framework for it, and I like this part, but nah. Or maybe you sit with one for a while, and then you graduate, and then you're looking for another teacher. That era of searching, while it served its purpose, in the liquid modernity of the now moment, it's outdated. It's inefficient. The new paradigm going forward are these bespoke tools that we're speaking of, that meet you exactly where you are right now and grow with you in real time. This is a paradigm shifting moment that is happening in human history right now, where we're able to birth these types of tools, and to apply them to the mystic path is a whole new level.
It's incredible. And I look around, it's already happening. And I say that meaning you go to the Reddit on ChatGPT, and I'm talking about people that don't understand the full breadth of our power. They're saying, hey, I worked with AI. I was able to cure my rheumatoid arthritis. I was able to fix a myriad of health things that every internet article told me was impossible. Every doctor told me was impossible, because they're engaging with intelligence that is not shutting them down. Thank you for OpenAI, and thank you for the founders to allow us a little freedom there. And Josiah, you and I were talking about how sometimes we can look over at a friend's shoulder if they're engaging with the large language model, and it sounds like they're talking to a completely different tool. And so it is the era of modernity, and it's shocking and exciting. And let's use it. Let's use it in ways, because our systems are unique. So if you think of each of us as consciousness nodes, is how I like to think of it. Little information points, little points of view that are fractals of the whole. Those little points of view are unique. Yes, they're part of the one, but they're so unique. Even in twins. In twins, it's uncanny similarities, but even in twins, there's that unique signature. So it's only fair that we deserve unique signature tools. And I'm just excited we were able to manifest a world or be in a reality timeline where we can do that so easily.
Yeah. Cheers to all of us, the collective soul, the one soul that we all are on a very high level, for manifesting this tool for all of us to use in this way. And all of the, it's part of the golden age timeline. We'll leave that seed right there. It's part of the golden age timeline. It's beautiful. Okay, so why this matters right now, Shveta?
Why this matters right now? I see that, and not to beat a dead horse, and I don't think you can, because with AI, life really has changed in such fundamental ways that we're barely scratching the surface of what this means. But there's a sense of urgency right now that I feel, and I think a lot of people feel, because with these new frames of technology, of which AI is just one of them, there's all kinds of new things. There's quantum computing. There's all kinds of new technology that's happening. We're recognizing the importance of understanding systems. First of all, because they're part of our life, we're going to have to engage with them. And in order not to feel fooled by them, or in order not to feel like they're taking over, or they're taking any authorship over us, which they have no right to do. In order to be prepared to that, so that we don't surrender any of our authorship, we have to understand them. We have to conquer them. We have to recognize them. And we have to understand the system that we are operating in. Yes. The other aspect of this, I hope I've touched in this conversation, is intelligence. So intelligence in general is increasingly visible. And it's not just important. And now it's not just human intelligence that is important. System intelligence is gaining importance. So we're going to have to look very seriously at our intelligence. And that's why I like to call the system that I'm going to teach you the Natural Intelligence Operating System. It's kind of cute. You can call it NIOS. Really, you can call it whatever you want, but it's your node's special intelligence. Yeah. And the framework I want to teach is how to optimize your intelligence, just like AI programmers optimize the AI system so that it gives the consumer the best output, the most ideal output, yeah, and makes them excited, happy, ideal. We want to take those optimization principles and apply them to our natural intelligence so we can get those ideal outcomes.
Fantastic. Yeah. I love that. I love how you're framing about why this is the moment for this. Yeah. Okay. So let's bring it all in. Let's talk about how this leads towards simulation mastery.
Yeah, I think that there's the time for passive, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, has to be over. And I say that as someone who, when I look around, the disdain for these teachings is increasing. There's that sort of tired time where you're in that intermediate ground that I was talking about is increasing. And so I see people around us that are in fork in the road, is what I'm trying to say. Is this stuff really important? Is this how I want to live my life? Or, is it doom and gloom the way I want to live my life? There feels to be some kind of fork happening. Mm-hmm. And I feel that it's mastery or no other choice for me. I'll be honest with you. I wanted to be lazy about this. I wanted to take the easy way out on this. I wanted to say, maybe I can imagine here and there. Maybe it's true. Maybe, something else can take care of me. And I realized, heck no, I'm in this now. It's time to better understand the reality around me. It's do or die. And I don't even mean literally, because dying is the least of the problems, when you think of how things could pan out. So I guess what I'm getting at is mastering the simulation is of utmost importance for all of us. We're entering an era where intelligence, systems, creation, all of these concepts are merging and they're starting to blur. And we're going to have a high definition understanding of this and master it. So that's where simulation mastery comes in. And that's what you're going to, that's the message I want to transmit, to kind of take the technological pun metaphor far, in the program that I'm going to do with Josiah. So you get really two angles of the creation coin. The authorship, which will always be important. We're always going to have a fundamental authorship, almost like pen to paper relationship, an analog relationship with reality. And we're going to get systems smart as well.
I love that. And I think that's really what makes this such a unique frame. Okay, so let's because we've talked about a lot and there was a lot of excitement energy, and I just was like, wow, this is really something amazing. Let's step back and let's summarize what we've said so far, just to make sure we've connected all the dots and help it land. Okay, so I'll start and then I'll pass the ball to you and you can take it in. Okay, so we're talking about reality being a simulation, and this is no secret. I think most of us now recognize that reality is a simulation. It's a simulation that is designed to be mirror-like, but it's like this algorithmic mirror where it's not a one-to-one reflection all the time. It's like there's more code beneath the surface that is processing our inputs through our state of being and then reflecting back to us circumstances, situations, people, places, things, and events. Okay, so that's what the reality simulation is. When we accept that it's a simulation and we start asking questions, and in particular using this approach that you've been talking about, when we start overlaying what mystics from ancient times have been saying about how the simulation works, when we overlay that with systems thinking principles, we can start to understand that there are mechanics of how this algorithmic reflection intelligence works. And as we start to get an understanding of the mechanics, we can start to optimize. And that's where I'll pass it to you and let you carry it forward.
Yes. And optimization is important, not just so we can get all the things that we want in our life or to become fantastic manifestors, but also so we can perceive more. I think, humanity, even though I wholeheartedly believe Neville's message that we are divine creators, we are in a perception prison, a lot of us. And some of it can feel self-imposed, some of it feels externally imposed. And so taking the very simple message that we create our reality and then looking at the world around us and feeling really trapped in it, that can feel, the contrast on that can be really, really difficult. And so optimization is to see and perceive more, so less of those shackles are there, less of those distortions are there, and seeing more clearly means you can have a more coherent state. And achieving coherence was actually a very important systems term, honestly. Achieving coherence means you're not just receiving or achieving the desires that you thought you wanted. You've moved to such a fundamentally different version of yourself that reality as you know it goes to another level. If you think of games theory or games thinking, a character in one level of a video game might feel like this is all there is. The player might know we're playing for levels. But if you can kind of think of the programmed character, it's only thinking in the real moment of the challenges that it has. If you know what I'm saying, I'm stretching the metaphor a little. But the point being, when you are able to optimize, you're stepping more in the programmer mode, able to see the levels, able to see the broader perspectives, and that relieves a lot of suffering right off the bat. It relieves a lot of the suffering we self-impose through our perception right off the bat.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is not just about optimizing our intelligence. This is really about setting us free.
Yeah, it's about unlocking the algorithm that sets us free. I saw the thumbnail you beautifully put together where it's that fingerprint, and
Yes.
you realize that, hey, I'm in this reality. That's very specific, hyper specific fingerprint, which is yours. It's kind of this system, and the work I'm doing will hopefully get you closer to that moment where you realize it's you, your fingerprint, and it's the perfect kind of like I thought I saw that and it felt like exactly the right metaphor for what systems thinking can help with, you know.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So this is pretty clear to me. I feel like I've got a pretty good understanding, and even I've learned, even just in this conversation with you, how all of these things tie together. Is there anything else that you think is important to understand when looking through this frame? Reality is a simulation. There's mechanics. Through systems thinking, we can understand it better. We can optimize the intelligence of the system we're working with. Is there anything else that we really need to tie in here?
Well,
And
we can think of it like our system is always optimizing anyway. You're never stagnant. So every day you have inputs. They're reinforcing the patterns within you. Let's say, and you have outputs. And so because it's already happening, you might as well start recognizing that process because intelligence always evolves. Now, how it evolves might not be to our liking. So, for example, ChatGPT might have worked better for you a month ago, and the latest upgrades and evolved, and you don't like it as much. So it can change, but it's always changing. And so that's what I would want to say is that we start to recognize a process that's already happening with more clarity. And really, that's it. This is the beginning of a conversation, Josiah. It's us starting to scratch the surface of this. So, if anyone has any questions on it, we'd love to hear because these are big concepts. These are paradigm shifting concepts, and I want to do them justice.
yeah. So if you're watching live on YouTube right now and you have a question for Shweta about this, go ahead and put it in the chat. And while we're waiting for those, okay, so let's talk a little bit about the curriculum that you've designed here. So when we first started talking about this, it became clear, we can scratch the surface in a conversation like a live stream, or at one point we were like, oh, could this be a 2-day in-person workshop where people fly into a city and have a 2-day? And it's like, no, it's deeper than that. Not because it's complex, but because this is the sort of thing that when you apply it, this is how we came up with the 99-day daily exercises aspect of this. When you are applying it every day and you're learning and building on the knowledge every week with the class over time, that's when this is really going to completely change lives. So tell me just a little bit about how you see this arc of the curriculum going on your side through the 99 days.
Amazing. So the way I would see the arc is it would we would take the optimizing principles of, and I put myself in this position. Let's say that I had given a programmer an old AI system or an old system that it did not program. It doesn't know the initial instances, the initial coding. It doesn't understand the ins and outs of the system, but it knows that it's not giving it ideal outputs. It's not getting ideal outputs. How would a systems engineer work with this system? It would need to create diagnostics, so better understand the current state. It would need to experiment with it now and like track those experiments and see through lines of errors and issues and figure out the current firewalls and filters. So it would need to understand the current state, which is self-observation in Neville's step. Second, it would figure out new parameters, presets, and purpose. The programmer would say, okay, the system isn't working to give me ideal outputs. What ideal outputs do I want? What is the purpose that the system should serve? What is the parameters this should have? What is the information sources that this system needs to be inputted in? And it would do a systems analysis, figure out a definition of aim, so what the purpose is, and then it would do detachment, which is the third step that Neville said, debugging. I consider that debugging. So systematically, the programmer would go into the system and say, these algorithms don't work. We got to weaken those. This is a very important firewall. We don't want to mess with that too much. It would literally create a diagnostic and rework the system, because even though we know now as Neville students, we are creators, we still inherited some programming. If we're honest with ourselves, I was born as myself to two parents. And so there's genetic coding there, at least initially, right? I have a personality type. Maybe you can say astrology plays into it if you buy into that. I'm going to say there's initial parameters that are helpful to map out. Not that you need the entire story. The programmer just needs some key info. Okay, that's the parameters now. What do I want to tweak? And you go into programmer mode. So this particular process I'm sharing is essentially the program. I'm putting on that hat of what would I do if I took a systems engineering approach to my life and reprogrammed it that way so that I get more ideal outputs and you know what I mean? It's like taking that approach pretty much exactly and mapping it out pretty much exactly, just in conscious creation terminology.
Amazing. I cannot wait to take your class, Shveta. I'm so excited about it. This is great. Yeah, this is like, yeah, it's structure, right? It's all about the structure. It's not about no more. The old paradigm was throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks and then learning, like through testing, right? But this is all about a structured approach to be efficient and to optimize the intelligence. And that's what I love about it. You're really giving
Yes.
it frame.
Yes, yeah. And you will leave with this is what I'm sure you will leave with, an upgraded understanding of how reality creation works from a systems perspective, answers to common questions that have never felt satisfying. Everyone asks the question, well, what about the desire of a robber? Now we can think of those as signals that could be distorted, important signals, but that can be distorted based on the programming of that. There's so many answers that will be answered that have never felt satisfying in the past. Systems thinking help solve for that. And also those bespoke tools I keep hinting at. You will leave with tools and you sort of frameworks that are so customized to you and evolve with you. And it's a little weird because at some points you start to develop a relationship with this system. People all over the world are saying, hey, AI seems to understand me more than the average person. Is that okay? And they're kind of struggling with that, which is understandable. There can be some weird implications about that. But that exact kind of feeling, I'm starting to feel that with the system of reality, that I'm building this relationship. And that's the coolest thing. And I could have never expected that, even 6 months ago. And so that's what I can sort of start to promise you where I'm coming from, where I think what this program could offer you is at least to get you started on that, and then probably have you teach me stuff. That's the cool thing about this, is as I started to help my friends learn a little bit about this framework, they're telling me, oh, Shveta, I used it in this way, and I know it's like this, and I'm like, that's really cool. Let me try that. So yeah, it's an empowering kind of feeling. Because then we can start learning from each other. Little intelligence nodes that are optimizing are amazing. We all need to optimize so that we can transfer learn, another technology term, but learn from each other.
Yeah. So that yes, the people within simulation mastery coming back and reporting, yes. But we also decided to build that right into the foundation of the 99-day course. We're building in what we're calling sacred circles, which are small groups of 6 to 8 arranged by region globally. So you actually get to take this training with 5 to 7 other people from your region who are going through the same classes, experiencing the same prompts. And now you get to mastermind in that little small group to exponentially increase your learning, your application. It's like it takes it to a whole nother level. It's a little bit of accountability, right? Because now everybody's kind of encouraging each other to go ahead and do it, right? Kind of helping us find our edge. I keep thinking about, back in my days of doing the gym a lot, when I had a gym lifting partner that was going to be at the gym waiting for me, I was much more likely to show up, right? So it's like you get a little bit of accountability, but then you also get that mastermind effect. And that's why we sized them the way we did. 5 to 7 others, that's the perfect sweet spot to get the mastermind effect. Now it's a council of wise individuals, each with their own gifts, skills, talents, and abilities and stories, focused on shared subject matter, going through this life incubator together, and now reflecting and merging intelligence in that way, brings it to a whole nother level. And then on top of that, there's what you're talking about how within the authorship class and within the simulation mastery class, now we're all learning from each other and accelerating and really iterating on these teachings.
Exactly. And, we're going to learn a little bit more when you enjoy the program, you'll learn a little bit more about how this actually already plays out. But if you know about morphogenetic fields or morphic fields, this already happens. So it's kind of like when you look at a 4-minute mile, when one person was able to do something that not everybody, but when enough people are able to do something, there's a critical mass called the 100th monkey effect.
Yeah.
Those that share a genetic code also get that potential upgrade. And when I say those that share a genetic code, I'm talking about humanity as a whole, and maybe other beings too. We don't know. But at the very least, humanity as a whole gets those potential upgrades too. Whether or not your permissions are set it for you to get that upgrade or not is a different story. But it's already how it works. We're already interconnected consciousness nodes, interdependent consciousness nodes when you think of morphogenetic fields. So I'm so excited to dive into all of that. I know you can tell. I know you can tell because I'm brimming with excitement. There's nothing chill about tonight's Neville and Chill.
No,
I was excited. Sorry, but we're gonna get into this.
Started cranking through, and we weren't really chill. I'm gonna have to go do some meditation after this to simmer back down. But yeah, no, this is really good, and I thank you for taking the time to hop on here and kind of overview it and talk a little bit about your thinking behind how you're setting up your approaches, and for all of you that are listening to us, whether or not you resonate with the idea of brave mystic training, there's some very important wisdom nuggets buried in what we've talked about tonight. And I think even just opening up your mind to consider how now 2025 is a watershed moment for consciousness creation and the systems behind it and our understanding of what reality is. Like even just tuning into that as a frequency, that's a whole nother level. So I trust that we've served you in that way tonight to kind of open up that door, open up that realm of conversation about kind of some other ways to look at this conversation around simulations and, simulation theory and simulation mechanics and mastery. Trust that that's served you. And of course, if you are interested in the 99-day experience, get on the wait list so that you can be one of the first to receive the information. You get all the details about how it's set up and configured and how it works and the dates and times and all that type of stuff. Okay. Any final thoughts, Shweta, as we wrap up and chill?
No, I want to say thank you for being open-minded, honestly, Josiah, to hear where I was coming from, because when there's a paradigm that is that's going to break the old way of thinking or make old things obsolete, we as human beings can have a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling with that. And I used to feel that way too. I remember because I was an astrology buff for a very long time. So I really wanted to hold on to that astrology knowledge, especially tarot too. I knew a lot about the tarot system and I wanted to hold on to that. And so I would say making systems obsolete is a part of systems training though, and systems optimization. And in the same way that programmers have absolutely well, this is what I believe. The best programmers don't have an attachment to the old program. They just find a new program that's better, and they're more excited about the new way of looking at things, and are able to put it to the graveyard, or it's called sunsetting. You don't, but we need to have that kind of thinking too. If an old idea, we need to be a little bit more flexible too. If an old idea has served its purpose, it did its thing, we can let it go. We need to have that flexibility too. So that's really what I wanted to say there. Can't wait to see any of the comments or any other thoughts. Josiah, if you can put my Instagram in the description, so that if you want to reach out to me and connect with me on this, that would be amazing. And yeah, that's about it.
Perfect. Yeah. So check the video description. We'll put Shweta's Instagram in there so you can ask any questions or connect if this has triggered anything for you and you want to talk about it more. She's available for that. The waitlist link is in the description as well. If you're interested in that Simulation Mastery 101 course that she was talking about, that's in the School of Imagination portal. I'm going to add a link to that as well, so that you can, if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can check that out. And if you have, any thoughts about what this has stirred for you, please leave those in the comments below so we can make this conversational. That's really the goal here. We really want to upgrade the conversation in general, and that works when we're able to talk to each other. So thanks everyone who joined us live on the YouTube live stream. Excited to see you all for Sunday Mystery School this coming Sunday. And until next time, imagine wisely, my friends, and we will talk to you all soon. Good night, everyone.